Caught off guard, Chad stood frozen in place before he could react. When the pain finally hit him, he reached up to touch his head, only to find his hand covered in blood. There was a huge wound on his head. How dare you hit me?" Chad stared at Abigail in shock and anger. "You are done for. All of you are. I'll dash." A hard slap from Dustin shut him up and sent him sprawling to the ground. For a moment, Chad saw stars and bled from both his nose and mouth. Even 2 of his teeth were knocked out of his mouth. 100 slaps, was it? Fine. We can do that. Dustin grabbed a fistful of Chad's hair and lifted him off his feet. Then, a torrent of slaps rained down on Chad's face continuously. Following a series of sharp slapping sounds, Chad's face became red and swollen, and he was on the brink of losing consciousness. Shocked by Dustin's violent assault, the onlookers gaped in terror. The person who was being beaten up was the son of the leader of the Charging Tiger Gang, a person whose powers were unimaginable and who had connections in both the legal system and the underworld. People like them always had their way and have never been publicly shamed like this. How did this young man dare to do something so audacious? My word. This brat is gutsy. He even has the guts to beat up the son of the leader of the Charging Tiger Gang. I say he's just impulsive. I don't think he understands how much trouble he's gotten himself into. He might have just suffered a good beating for what he's said, but now that he's pulled something like this, his life might be on the line. The crowd commented on Dustin's reckless behavior. He deserves that. After everything that Chad put them through, Abigail found Dustin's actions very satisfying. Chad had led his men to tear down their house and bullied them as he wished. His actions were horrible, to say the least. And a beast like him deserved every bit of Dustin's beating. Oh no, he's done it now. He's offended the Charging Tiger Gang. What do we do now? Mr. Robinson's expression was both woeful and flustered. He had tried his best to mediate between them, but still, he did not manage to calm both parties down, which ended up with the situation escalating. After several tens of slaps later, Dustin suddenly felt the weight in his grip disappear. Chad's hair could no longer sustain his weight and finally gave way, which resulted in a patch of his hair being ripped off his scalp. With a bald spot on the top of his head, Chad slumped to the ground, his face so swollen that it was no longer recognizable. I'm not done with you yet. Dustin reached out for Chad's collar, ready to make good on their deal of 100 slaps. But before he could continue, more than 10 white vans pulled up by the curb. The doors opened, and over 100 henchmen with machetes rushed out of the vans. They were all dressed in black, with a huge image of a tiger's head embroidered in the middle. They looked mighty and domineering. It's the Charging Tiger Gang. These are people from the Charging Tiger Gang. The crowd quickly dispersed, or else they would be dragged into the mess as well. Who would have guessed that the Charging Tiger Gang would get here so fast? The young man's in deep trouble now. Well, he deserves it. I mean, why did he have to go and offend the son of their leader? Exactly. We, common folks, have our way of life. If he didn't have the power, then he should have laid low. See, now even his life is in danger. The crowd looked at Dustin as if he were already a dead man. The Charging Tiger Gang had always been known for their arrogance and vengefulness. Anyone who offended them met a tragic fate. They'd either go bankrupt, or their family would suffer great tragedy. There has never been an instance like today, where the son of their leader had been beaten up, and so brutally, at that. Even when an ordinary gang member experienced injustice, the gang would go all out to demand a payback. So, now that it happened to their leader's son, it was inevitable that Dustin and the Robinsons would bear the full wrath of the Charging Tiger Gang. Oh no, darn it. Now we're all done for. Edmund felt weak in the knees when he saw the fierce appearance of the members of the Charging Tiger Gang, and his face paled. There are so many of them. Abigail frowned, worry written all over her face. She could not help the trepidation that crept up on her. She knew Dustin was a skilled fighter, but the Charging Tiger Gang had the numbers. She counted at least 100 henchmen, each armed with a machete. No matter how skilled Dustin was, he was severely outnumbered. Right then, Chad, with his terribly swollen and bruised face, seemed to be aware that something was going on, So he tried his best to open his eyes, managing only to open his eyes into the narrowest of slits. He saw the situation around him and laughed maniacally. Ha ha ha. My men from the Charging Tiger gang are here. You, all of you, will die here today. Run, sir. I'll hold them back. Abigail saw the Charging Tiger gang close in on them, and she rushed to stand in front of Dustin, raising the broken bat above her head with a determined look. She had been the one who called Dustin, so now that there was trouble, she had to be the one to bear full responsibility. Take care of yourself, kid. These shrimps can't hurt me, Dustin said calmly, showing no sign of fear. But, sir, there are so many of them. How can you fend them off alone? I don't want you to get into trouble. Quick, go now. Abigail urged Dustin anxiously. As they spoke, the gang members had already surrounded them. Even if they wished to leave now, they no longer had a way out. Weren't you boasting earlier? Scared now? It's too late. With a grotesque expression, Chad hissed, I'm telling you, this is just the beginning. I will make sure that you pay 10 times, no, 100 times worse for what you did to me. I'll make your life a living hell. You're too noisy. Dustin scoffed before giving Chad a kick that sent him flying several feet away. Chad. The Charging Tiger gang members were astonished and quickly rushed over to help him up. The moment Chad got back on his feet, he spat out a mouthful of blood and nearly fell to the ground once again. The burning desire for revenge kept him going, despite the excruciating pain he was experiencing. His deathly glare was fixed on Dustin, as if he wanted to swallow him whole. Who dares hit my son? A loud, authoritative sound boomed. The horde of Charging Tiger members who had formed a barrier around Dustin and the Robinsons parted. Soon after, a burly and menacing figure clad in a fur coat strode in with an air of arrogance and confidence. This was none other than the leader of the Charging Tiger gang, Felix Miller. No way. The leader of the Charging Tiger gang himself showed up. Things are about to get real ugly. Felix Miller is infamous for his ruthlessness. Anybody who crosses him would much rather face death than endure his torment. If I were the young man, I'd end myself right now to avoid Felix Miller's cruel torture. A commotion broke out among the crowd once more due to Felix Miller's presence. For the leader of the gang himself to show up with such a huge entourage, it was obvious that the Charging Tiger gang intended to assert their dominance. You're finally here, Dad. If you were any later, this bastard would have finished me off.